Now we have to go on to this other story. Now, we brought this to you just a few days ago, 2 days after we left Las Vegas, where we pressed and pressed for answers on that worst mass shooting in U.S. history. Well, we learned a little more today. Very interesting. After refusing to answer our questions on Wednesday, Clark County Sheriff Joe Lombardo held a press conference, and he did it today, earlier today, and he said they still have no motive for the massacre and added this about reports of a potential accomplice to Stephen Paddock.
I know and believe there was only one suspect who killed 58 people and injured hundreds more. There was only one person responsible, and that was Stephen Paddock. He had lost a significant amount of his monetary wealth in close proximity to 1 October, and that may have a driving factor associated with it. We do not anticipate charges being brought forward against Mary Lou Danley. As to any other people, the FBI has an ongoing case against an individual of federal interest.
Individual of federal interest, very, very interesting. Looks like a grand jury may have already been convened to pursue this someone else whose name we don't know connected to this horrific crime, but he says it's not Mary Lou Danley.
As to any other people, the FBI has an ongoing case against an individual of federal interest. I will not be able to elaborate on that statement.
Another lovely tidbit of information, this freak Paddock had multiple photos of child pornography on his computer. Oh, and by the way, officials announced just this week that Paddock's body was cremated and his ashes sent to his brother in Florida. Wow. Joining us now to try to piece this all together, former LAPD detective Mark Fuhrman is in Sandpoint, Idaho, and he's been following all these developments. And in Las Vegas, the author of The Power of Relentless and the host of War Now, the Wayne Allyn Root Show on USA Radio. Wayne Allyn Root is here. Wayne, let's start with you. You've been on this from the beginning. Las Vegas is your hometown. From the beginning, you've raised questions about a possible terrorist connection to this case that the feds kind of moved quickly to, discount early on. What did that very odd Lombardo press conference today tell you? He looked very uncomfortable.
I think every Lombardo press conference has been odd, and he always looks uncomfortable with the FBI staring him down behind him, and we aren't getting the answers we deserve. That's all I've ever said. I don't know that there's a terror connection. Nobody knows that. But I do know that we have not gotten the right answers. The people of Vegas who call my talk show all the time, no one believes what we've heard from the FBI. No one believes what we've heard from the police. And by the way, it's awful strange that our president, who I love, I'm one of the biggest fighters on behalf of Donald Trump, but he loves to wade into controversy and crisis and chaos. And Donald Trump has said nothing about this, which leads me to believe the government knows much more about this than they're willing to let on. So I think that there's so much more that we're going to learn in the future that we just don't know right now. We're not getting the right answers from the people in authority.
Mark Fuhrman, we know in the days right after the shooting, ISIS and certain ISIS websites had claimed that Stephen Paddock had converted to Islam 6 months earlier. Now, we have no evidence that he had in that photo, the only photo of him. He has, has a shot glass. If he had converted to Islam, he would probably wouldn't be drinking, but maybe he would be. But could this be? Could there be something here, or is it irresponsible even to raise that possibility, given what we know now?
Well, look at this. ISIS will take a claim of any mass murder, and in hopes that nobody else will claim it, then they get credit for it, and then they are, of course, terrorists, and that creates terror. When you look at this, you have to look at the evidence. That's all we can deal with is the evidence. You can make theories, you can dream things up, you can hope things to be, but until you have evidence, you can't make any kind of conclusion that that's what occurred. So the evidence here is we had a sole gunman that actually supplied, put in action, set up, and shot these people from the Mandalay on the 32nd floor. And that is all that they can conclude at this point.
Mark,
if there is a conspirator someday,
But Mark, you know what? I guess keep going back to fundamental questions. My fundamental questions are photographic evidence, videotape. I know when you check into every hotel, and Wayne, you can chime in on this. You are videoed every step of the way in Las Vegas. There are cameras everywhere, everywhere. Why have we not seen any of that material? I agree with you. Evidence, that rules. But in the absence of transparency, what are people to think? 58 Americans are dead. And we're supposed to believe a guy who's 60-something years old was running between two pedestals to shoot. People who were on the ground were reporting that there were two different. They thought there were two different shooters. Multiple witnesses said that, and that the guy is like now a sprinter running between gun positions. All of that to me, again, you're an expert, Mark, but when the hotel doesn't release the check-in photos, video, nothing. And the guy has the hard drive was erased. All of that is odd to me. That's just as a regular person. That's odd, Mark. Correct. Then Wayne.
Well, Lombardo, he actually stated that they looked, I think, 25,000 feet or 25,000 video segments that they actually reviewed. And you can see the volume of work that they've had to actually go through in the last 3 months. But in all that video, we have, once again, you do not have a homicide investigation and a prosecution, but you have civil litigation. You have discovery there. The private property, the MGM, now it's the evidence, and the police are probably, most probably, going to be sued along with Mandalay Bay in a security issue and a failure to do this and a failure to do that, because that's what attorneys do. So they're not going to share this and pollute the jury pool until those issues are settled.
Laura, can I jump in here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say it's not 1963, okay? Maybe Americans believed the JFK story in 1963, but I could tell you no one I talk to in Las Vegas or anywhere in this country, because my show is national now, none of the callers believe this story. I could tell you it makes no sense that the police in Las Vegas did not put this in the hands of the homicide division with 35 seasoned homicide cops who've studied murders their whole life. They put it in the hands of a small division of 5 police officers who study accidental shootings by the police. I'd love anyone, including Mark, to explain that. You can't explain to me how a guy at the age of 60 wakes up one day and becomes Rambo, and you can't explain to me how within days of this shooting, suddenly Jared Kushner was sent to Saudi Arabia in a secret visit, and that's a fact. Politico outed this visit. By President Trump. And when he gets to Saudi Arabia, he gives a diplomatic pouch to the king of Saudi Arabia. Within days, 300 princes have been arrested and have been put in a high-security prison.
We'll have you back, Wayne. We got to wrap because we're going to black, unfortunately.
You can't explain why that happened.